Good afternoon. My name is Jen Salkin, and I'm from the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. Thank you for joining us today for Can a Person with Dementia Live Alone? Recognizing the Need for Support. This program is part of our series of virtual programs for caregivers that we provide each month. This program is being recorded, and we will be sharing the link with you all in an email over the next couple of days, so please feel free to share that with friends or family that couldn't join us today. We have a fair amount of information to cover today, so we'll be holding all questions until the end of the presentation. However, you may submit a question at any time using the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Before I introduce today's speaker, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Benjamin Rose. We're a Cleveland-based nonprofit founded in 1908, and our mission is to support caregivers and empower all people to age well through research, consumer responsive services, and client advocacy. We provide a variety of services and supports to help people age well in the community. That includes behavioral health services, social work, counseling, and coaching to help people achieve financial wellness and housing stability. And we also operate the Rose Centers for Aging Well, which are senior centers located throughout Cleveland, and we are a Meals on Wheels provider. I'd now like to introduce today's speaker, Kathy Franz. Kathy is a care consultant with We Care Because You Do, a product of the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. Kathy, it's all yours.
Hi, welcome, and thank you so much for the wonderful turnout and interest in this topic. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm a licensed social worker, and as Jen had said, I am care consultant with the We Care program through Benjamin Rose. Prior to this job, I worked with the Cleveland chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and again, I was a care consultant there and more had a few other roles. But my most recent was as a care consultant using the same BRI system that we work with now. And what brought me to this work was that I was a caregiver for my mother who had a progressive neurological disease that did have a dementia component. So I come from both a professional and a personal background, and just wanted you guys to know that that's where I come from. And so I'd like to start. What I'd like to do throughout this talk is cover the prevalence of persons living with dementia, what defines them, how to evaluate their needs, what can be put in place to help, and as far as resources for caregivers. Next slide, please. The title of this presentation is Can People Live Alone with Dementia? And the reality is, estimates indicate that approximately 1/3 of people diagnosed with dementia and 1 in 7 of those diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease do live alone. So this is a topic that is really something that I know that many families are interested in and struggle with, because the reality is there are people out there who are living by themselves. Next slide. I just want to talk about dementia as a overarching umbrella. It doesn't describe any specific disease, but it describes a number of symptoms, memory and thinking, as well as those judgment. So it affects judgment, and these things affect a person's daily life. Some of the most prevalent forms of dementia are Alzheimer's. You can also hear about Lewy body and those things like that. But dementia as a whole is a slow-moving disease. People travel through various stages of independence whenever they do have dementia. Some people who are diagnosed very early in the disease can be working, driving, and really pretty completely independent, but have some memory issues that were interfering with their lives. As time goes on, the one certain thing that we do know about diseases that have a dementia component is they do progress over time. So they go from generally complete independence to needing some part-time support, be that family support or a paid caregiver or some outside supports like adult day center to help keep them independent in their home. This in turn, as time goes on and their needs become more increased, will turn into full-time support, which might be a combination of home care and family support. They may have somebody come in and live with them. And then it would, again, progress as the disease does to 24-hour care, which could look like 24-hour care in a home situation, or things like assisted living or nursing home care, long-term care facility. Next slide, please. Another thing that makes it difficult is because there are over 400 diseases under the umbrella of dementia. I mentioned before just the sort of the top ones, but there can be so many diseases. Also, the reality is that now currently people are being diagnosed with not just one type. They might be diagnosed with mixed dementia, which means more than one type of dementia. So everyone is different. Some persons might be diagnosed in the early stages. They might get self-diagnosed because they want to know they're having some trouble with their memory and it's a concern for them, and they truly are pretty functional. Other people, they may be diagnosed in the mid to late stages, depending on what their circumstances is. Maybe they had a spouse and that is no longer able to care for them, but was really making it them functional because they had that support. So they would get diagnosed later. So it's not often the diagnosis doesn't mean you're in the earliest stage, or doesn't necessarily mean you're in the earliest stages. So given that, persons with dementia progress through the stages at different rates. Some people have, nice plateaus where things are stable for a period of time before they progress, and others may progress more rapidly through the stages. The third part is that persons with dementia can have good days when they function well. They look great, they're answering questions appropriately, and it can be difficult for caregivers to decide when a person actually needs help, when to step in, because it's a disease where they can look really good and be really very appropriate, but it may not be throughout all the time. They may be presenting well on a good day, and it makes a caregiver question, when should I need that? Do they really need help? When should I step in? Next slide, please. So getting started. Caring for a loved one who's living with dementia is challenging in so many aspects. It's nothing that we signed up for. Certainly sometimes it is subtle and we find ourselves caregiving before we realize that we're caregiving. Other times there can be something that happens that makes us realize that we have to step in. The emotional aspect is it's difficult to watch your family member struggle and realize that because of this disease that your relationship with them is changing. Making the decision to bring in outside supports, or to even down the road remove someone or bring in persons to care for them, is not one that's made lightly. It doesn't happen with one conversation or without outside support. So whenever you're figuring it out, again, I talked about a little bit about, families can often be aware that something's wrong, even though the changes are subtle. An increase in phone calls, repeat of stories, things that make you wonder, maybe they should get some medical assistance. Something's not right. But it's often like, it's not just one thing. It's often an array of little things that can cause people to be concerned. Today, I'd like to look at some things that we can take a closer look at to sort of evaluate people's daily habits and interactions and make the needs for support clearer. So some things to look at, to consider that you might not have considered. Some things come up naturally, and they might be the things, the bellwether that makes you think, oh, maybe there's something going on here. But I'd like to look at an overall overview of some things that caregivers can look at more specifically to provide you with more information, and therefore know when it might be time to step in. And overall, I really want everyone to think of safety as the main driver whenever you're considering when and where to insert support. Certainly we can provide them with help otherwise, but safety really should be of the utmost. Which brings us to some of the aspects to look at. Medicine and meals would be a higher, obviously, safety issue. Are they taking their medication as prescribed? Do they ask for refills before refills are due? Have you noticed that there's more medicine than they should have? Are they confused about when to take them, or asking you about medications when they never discussed them before? Also, if they've been hospitalized for doubling up on medications or missing doses of medications. Those obviously are safety issues you want to be in the utmost, or the highest part of your mind, to think, well, this is something that needs to be addressed. Are they eating regular meals and drinking enough? Certainly, have they stopped, are they snacking more? Whenever you look in the refrigerator, are there multiples of food or spoiled food? Do you feel like they're losing weight or gaining weight? Changes in those habits can be something that can be of concern. Have they stopped cooking? Were they a cook and they no longer make meals for themselves? Could this be because they don't know how to do that? Or have they had an incident where they set off the fire alarm? Those types of things. Again, safety first. You want to make sure that you do a little bit more of investigating if those things are coming up. Changes in personality and routines. Here are other things to think about. Changes in emotional changes. Are they, more paranoid? Do they think that, are they concerned about crime or things that they may not? Again, a change. Certainly, I know that you have to take into account a person's personality. Also, hygiene. Are they bathing as much as they used to be before? Is it noticeable? Do you, even if you ask, do you think that maybe that, and they might say, yes, I've showered, but you're not concerned. Are they wearing the same clothes or soiled clothes? Now, is that in and of itself something that would preclude them from living alone? Not really. Would it preclude them for interacting with the community? Maybe so. And I know that it really is something that caregivers care about. So it's something to consider. Again, not taking care of themselves as they did before. Communication. Is it hard for them to get their point across? Are they able to have the conversation on the phone with you? Have their calls become more frequent or at odd hours, or more concerning for them? Are they fearful when they're talking to you, or are they getting off the phone quickly and not being able to have that conversation? Again, safety issues. Would they be at risk for scams, which I know in the older population, that's regardless of if you have dementia, they're pretty sneaky. But I think that obviously people who have dementia might be at higher risk for those types of things. And it's something to think about. How has that changed, and how does that affect their ability, again, to be by themselves and on their own? Self-isolation. Have they stopped coming to family events? Have they stopped interacting with faith-based activities that they had always participated in before? What changes have you seen? Like they don't want to leave because for whatever reasons that sort of pattern of routine has changed. Behaviors can be anything, again, from being paranoid or having some fear, or as well as sort of denial too, of being an overly optimistic person where nothing's wrong. Oh no, everything's okay, doing fine, and not, being able to recognize that they have some deficits, or being willing to share because they are fearful of, what that might mean. Another part is just pride. You don't want to admit to, especially if you are adult children, that they taught you everything that you know, so why would they be asking you for help? So that those are things to sort of think about and dig a little deeper with. Cleanliness. In here, it's not so much hygiene, but just about their surroundings. Is there more clutter? people with dementia living alone are at higher risk for falls, which in uh, turn can sort of limit their ability to live alone, because falls can result in injury, which can, result in hospitalization and so on. So even just that type of cleanliness you want to consider, in addition to, are the floors and being washed? Is there, the counters have food on them? Those types of things where they didn't have them before, and a change. Again, does this equal not being able to live on their own? Not just this one thing, maybe not, but whenever you add things up, I want you to think about it that way. When I talk about temperature, again, we're not talking about, having a fever, but temperature in the house. Are they able to manage the thermostat in an appropriate way? Is it too cold in the winter, too hot in the summer? Is it variable? I worry as the summer months come up, if they're, still having the heat on very high when it's very hot outside, and that can lead to dehydration and other medical issues that you would not, think about otherwise. So, that's something to consider. Are their sleeping habits changed? Are they up at night? Are they, again, reaching out to you or talking about being up at night? Are they sleeping in where they were usually a morning person, and then when you call them, they're not up in the mornings? Again, those things can be indications that something's changing and maybe needs a closer look. Next slide, please. So how do we maintain independence in regards to safety and an individual living on their own? You want to, again, and I know I've been saying this throughout, you want to make sure that you think about those things that are of the utmost. Would they be able to manage in an emergency, and how would that look? Some things that can help in regards to technology, when we look at the different types of things that we went over, there are a lot of different technologies that can help these individual deficits that people might have whenever they're in the home living by themselves. Say that medication is an issue. Certainly we all know about the little pill box that you buy at the drugstore, and you put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in, and they're able to take them. That's kind of the basic. But it can go on to something that's very, very unique and more motorized and technologically important. They have pill dispensers that will only dispense that set of pills for that time of day, kind of like it unlocks. There's also pharmacies who will bag up each batch of pills for different times throughout the day. So there's no more pill bottles. They will just have a little plastic bag full of their morning pills, then their afternoon pills, then their evening pills, which sort of gets out of placing the pills in the pill boxes. Meals and cooking, obviously there are home delivered meals, sort of the Meals on Wheels that we're all familiar with. There's also very specific types of home delivery. As we know, over this COVID year, that we can almost get anything delivered to our door. So there are a lot more options, I think. First step, usually people will go to microwave meals if they're no longer safely able to or comfortable with cooking. So that can take some of the risk out. There are, in regards to using the stove, if you feel somebody is not safe, there are certainly devices that can turn off the stove or monitor, like a simple switch, so that it's not in use whenever somebody's not supervised. Checking again the if they're using, there's also obviously places and services that you can punch in, and certainly family can also do the grocery shopping. You can sort of more control a list, so that you're not getting those multiple milks and things that may happen if a person's going to the grocery store and thinking, oh yeah, I need milk, when they have 3 gallons in the refrigerator already. So those are some things to think about whenever you're looking at somebody who's having some trouble cooking or getting nutrition. Next, we go through the cleanliness of the home. Certainly having somebody come in is a nice first step. People are more willing, I'd say anecdotally, to having a cleaning person as opposed to somebody to help them do any number of things. So it's a kind of a nice entree to if an individual would need some help in the home that they would need to offer them cleaning, because it's one of the things that I think people are willing to give up to other people. So that can be helpful in the journey whenever you're thinking about what might be helpful to them. Some other things, and I just wanted to piggyback once more about the medications. I've also learned, like, the Alexa or those types of devices that you can talk to and play music on. Well, you can program them to remind a person to take their medication. So there's all these different kinds of things that can help with a specific sort of need that somebody has in order to help them maintain independence as time goes on. In regards to temperature, we have there are definitely programmable thermostats out there, but there's also pretty low key. You can get some kind of locks on the thermostat so that you can set it until it's at an appropriate temperature, say within a range in winter or in summer, so that they're not overheated or too cold. Some other things that people can consider are, again, outside support. That can look like home care. Well, and home care can be both family, informal, which means somebody that family or friends come in at no cost and help out with your providing any range of service for your family member. Could it be just companionship, supervision, socialization, to help with the other more specific needs, like making sure that they're eating well. That can look like, it can be family supported, but you could hire somebody to do that. There's a number of, certain agencies or informal caregivers that are working on their own that can come in at a fee to help support your person that's living alone until they need more support. Again, 24-hour support can look different for different people. They can look like having them go to an adult day center, which is a program outside of the home where it's geared for persons that have memory and thinking problems. And they provide them with meals and socialization and activities during the day usually, and then they come home and they might have somebody check in on them in the evening. So that a big chunk of the day is supervised, but that time where they're okay, or have family that can come in and check on them, and that can provide them with 24-hour care and sort of keep them independent for a little bit longer until somebody needs 24-hour care. If your main goal is to keep them in the home, certainly that's going to be added support either by family or hired care. I don't think anybody should feel like they can do it alone or be expected to. It's a big job. You want to make sure that you think about how that will look for your family. Next slide, please. And now I want to talk a little bit about from the caregiver's perspective. Certainly, it's not easy to see a loved one struggle. It's a hard thing and a scary thing to think that your family member has memory and thinking problems, and the prognosis is that it's going to get worse over time and they're going to need more help. It's often unplanned. Again, I talked about it's nothing we ever signed up for. We hope that our parents and or our loved ones are able to live independently and take care of themselves for as long as they're able into their senior years and be able to manage on their own. Sometimes whenever you're thrown into this, it's not like you even know what supports are out there or what care looks like or how questions to ask. And it's really hard to think about that, your family member, loved one has dementia, and eventually they're going to lose some of their independence. And that's hard enough that they're going to need support. and it's not going to be easy. But that doesn't just mean that they are going to need support and it's not going to affect you, because often their need for more support fringes on your independence, because you'll have another person to think about. You'll have more responsibilities, and that's not easy. And it's also hard to feel. This situation is definitely fraught with conflicting emotions. You loved your person. This person has helped you. They may have raised you, or you may have not had the best relationship with them, and now they need help. But on the other hand, you feel resentful, you feel guilty, you don't know how you're going to do this, you feel fearful. So there's a lot of conflicting emotions that come with being a caregiver and trying to decide when to plug in support. And also, again, chronic health and any kind of chronic health issue is a family affair. Even though they are the person with the dementia and they are the person that actually has this diagnosis and this disease, it affects you as well, because now you are a part of their caregiving team. You have to think about things and think about them more critically and in a different way than you have your whole life. Sometimes it's even, you feel like your roles are changing and they're switching, and certainly even the way you speak to them is going to change. So always do not count yourself out. Certainly, yes, they are the person that is struggling with this disease, but you count as much in this equation as they do. Next slide, please. So what can we do now? We can be realistic. We can focus on those things that we can do. We can plan. We can look at the deficits that they might have that are impeding them, or maybe dealing with some safety issues while living alone, and we can try and prepare. We can be practical. We can set some achievable goals and know that that things can be put in place. Some things will need to be put in place right away. Other things can wait till down the road. So we don't have to do everything at once. You want to build a care team. You want to connect with community resources, family, friends, of not only the person with dementia, but in your life as well. You are going to need a community of support for not just dealing with the practical issues of having a family member or a loved one that has dementia living in the community, but supporting you in your role and outside of the specific tasks you need to do. You want to trust your emotions. They're valid, they're important. None of them are bad. They are just emotions. Happiness and love does not outweigh anger and guilt. They are all valid and they're important, and they're speaking to how a person is functioning and feeling. So don't ever put those kinds of things on emotion. And practice grace for yourself, set boundaries, prioritize, know that I want you to put yourself in that you are putting energy in caring for your loved one with dementia. I want you to put as much energy in looking at yourself for self-care as well. This is not an easy role that you're playing, and certainly you want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. And recognize, again, as the last one, I got ahead of myself there, but self-care is of the utmost importance. If you are not a cared for caregiver, you cannot be a 100% great caregiver for your loved one. You need to take care of yourself and know that you're worth it, and that is definitely something that is worth taking the time out to make sure to check in on yourself as much as you check in on your loved one. Next slide, please. So when we talk about, I'm going to talk a little bit about the We Care program now. And our core values are such that we don't want caregivers to feel alone or helpless or hopeless about their situation. We want to make sure that caregivers feel like every day is doable. They should not feel alone in managing their needs for your aging loved ones. As a care consultant, we want to walk with you, be your partner, help take care of yourself. I often say that part of my role as a caregiver or a care consultant is to be your cheerleader and sort of to take the focus back to you and your feelings, and always make you know that they count, and to make sure that I'm your cheerleader and to make you know that I am going to refocus you whenever you get too much into maybe losing sight of that. And we view the aging process as something we're cherishing and we're to ensure that people can grow old with dignity and respect. Next slide, please. We care because you do. The program offers easy to access strategies and compassionate, personalized support for the family caregiver and older loved one over the phone and by email. You do not have to leave your house to have the We Care program. We look at each individual family and try and meet their greatest concerns and answer their questions. We provide connections to community-based services, indispensable health and caregiving resources, and guidance on how to maximize themselves. We address issues that caregivers care about most, including long-term care planning, financial legal concerns, housing options, and respite possibilities. We want to look at each caregiver's situation as a unique situation, because we know even as I spoke about, having every person that has dementia is different. So is the caregiver's family and their situation. We want to make sure that we address those things that you want to address. What we do best is provide families with one number to call for assistance. You have a caregiver throughout your time in the program who knows your first story, and as the story changes, they're aware of where you started. They know who you are, and you don't have to talk to a number of different people and repeat your story over and over. We help families get consolidated and provide curated information to make care-related decisions. We can even, give you the words that might help whenever you're reaching out to family and friends. We can be a sounding board for those times where you just need to get some things off your chest. We enable families to access and navigate community resources. Hopefully we can do some legwork and give you those contact information so that you are able to just get those steps completed that are important to you. We find ways to engage each family support network, even though you might think that your long distance family member who's out of town couldn't possibly help with this caregiving situation. We try and find things that they might be able to do to offer some support for you. And what I feel is the most important part of the care consultation and We Care program is that we offer you emotional support. We again are there for you as the caregiver so that your loved one can remain in the community for as long as they are able, by making sure that you're cared for as well. So what does a care consultant do? We collaborate with families to prioritize your needs. We ask a bunch of questions and find out what is going on, and maybe ask you questions about things that maybe you haven't thought about, and try and prioritize your greatest needs. We identify appropriate educational and community-based resources. So from that sort of interview and assessment and your needs, we try and find things that can address them specifically. We provide guidance to engage family and friends and reduce caregiver burden, and we assist based on experience. Care consultants are social workers or nurses who have at least 3 years of field work with older adults and their family and friend caregivers. So how do you get in touch with us? If you want to know more about the We Care program, if it sounds like something that would be interesting and helpful to you and your family, please reach out by telephone at 216-373-1797, or email us at wecare@benrose.org, or find us on the web at www.benrose.org/wecare. And I'd like to thank you for listening today, and hopefully I gave you some good suggestions. And now I guess we can open it up to some questions.
Great, thanks, Kathy. We do have a couple questions that have come in, and if you still have a question you'd like to ask, feel free to ask it in the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen. So the first question we have is asking for your opinion on nanny cams to monitor your loved one who lives alone.
I like to, it's an interesting concept for sure. I like to think of it as, whenever you have little children who are not quite ready to swim yet, and you put on those water wings, I kind of feel like it gives you, while it may help them float, I think it kind of gives you a false sense of security. It's not like you can't, that they don't need help, but it may give you a few more feet. I think that it also puts kind of an undue burden on the caregiver. Who has time to be a 24-hour monitoring service for their individual? And also, if they need 24-hour supervision, then we're speaking to, if they need that sort of level of support, maybe they need somebody in there with them or some additional supports. As well as if something were to happen, I guess, if you happen to be online, you would still have to get over there. I think other services, maybe like the Med Alert, where it would alert if they fell or something like that, might be something better or in addition to. But I think that it serves its purpose, but I would try and think about the underlying reasons why you think that might be good. I think that we're in this stage where we're trying, there's so much technology and they keep coming up with these great things that it might give us that false sense of security. If I have a camera, then I don't really need to plug in anything else, which may or may not be the situation.
Great, thank you. I just got a flurry of questions asking about the slides and recording, and yes, you will be getting a copy of the slides, and this is being recorded, so stay tuned. Our next question is wondering if you have any suggestions for people whose loved one has a lot of paranoia and they call law enforcement regularly because they think things are being stolen, and then when they get there, there's no evidence of that.
Well, I guess, certainly that speaks to so many issues. It's not uncommon, unfortunately, that the people can experience paranoia as part of their dementia. First, have it talk with their doctor about it, see if there's something going on that can be addressed medically to help. See what time of day it is. There's a syndrome called sundowning, where it can be common that people in the evening, for whatever reason, become more behavioral or anxious. And look at that. I would reach out to your local law enforcement agency and let them know that this person does have dementia, and maybe they call you first. Certainly, I'm sure that they have procedures that they must follow. And reassuring, certainly reassuring parents or their loved one about the situation. I know that it doesn't help if they're really doing that type of thing, and it might mean, again, that that's a time where they need more support. A visit I'm a big fan of sort of heading it off at the pass, and I know that it's not always possible, but say this is a recurring problem that happens in the evening. Maybe somebody checks in with that individual, or can stop by and say, "Oh, look, I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Let's do a sweep of the house. Look, everything looks great. Let's have a midnight, bedtime snack," and then sort of to appease them prior to the escalation to the call to the law enforcement. Some suggestions. I know that not every situation is going to be helped with those, but at least there's some place to start.
Great, thank you. Also, we're getting a lot of questions about We Care and the cost, and people are wondering if they have to be on Medicaid or low income to receive these services.
We are very lucky that this is a grant-funded program that can be offered free to families. It's a wonderful program that's at no cost to you.
Great, thank you so much. And as of now, I don't see any questions. So I want to thank Kathy so much for taking the time to speak to us today about this topic. We offer our virtual programs for caregivers monthly. So our next presentation will be on June 2nd, and that will be focused on LGBT aging and the challenges faced by that community. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and thanks for joining us again.
Bye, everyone.